A few weeks back, on an otherwise typical Thursday morning, I was caught up in the usual chaos, getting our 2 kids ready for school. It was around 7:30, and the house was buzzing with our daily routine when the phone rang, loud and unexpected. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize, which immediately got my attention. I picked up, cautiously curious. "Hello?" I said, pressing the phone to my ear. To my surprise, it was my wife, Claire, on the other end. That threw me off. We just talked the night before, so I wasn't expecting her to call again so soon. Claire works at a small marketing firm and is constantly on the go, especially since her current assignment had her working with a printing company downtown. Meanwhile, I work from home and take care of the kids, and somehow, even with our opposite schedules, we make it work. We're not rich, but we've built a comfortable life, a cozy 4-bedroom house in the suburbs with a pool and a solid circle of friends. She sounded flustered. "Last night, when I went down to the hotel lobby to grab a newspaper, someone stole my purse. Please cancel all our credit cards right away and have replacements sent out as soon as possible. I already told Joy, my boss, and she's making sure I get new company Amex cards overnight so I'll have them before I fly out tomorrow. She's also transferring me some money to hold me over." That definitely shook me. Claire's usually really careful with her stuff. "What exactly happened?" I asked. "I don't know. I guess I spaced out," she admitted. "I left my purse on the cashier's counter while I went to grab something else to read. When I came back, it was gone. The cashier said she was busy with another customer and didn't notice anything. My driver's license was in there too, but the hotel sent someone to check the dumpsters nearby. Hopefully they find it. Otherwise, I'll probably need a cab to get to today's meeting. Don't worry, I'll take care of the credit cards right away," I told her. "It sucks about the money, but we'll manage." "How much was in your wallet?" "About $1,200, she said with a sigh. "The rest of the cards we can replace gradually. Thankfully, most of my makeup was still in the room, so I'll be fine for the presentation this morning. How are the kids? I miss being home with all of you." That call brought to mind what happened about 6 weeks earlier. I managed to cancel the credit cards before any unauthorized charges were made. But the wallet, along with her driver's license and other non-credit cards, was never recovered. I pushed it out of my mind and moved on. Life kept rolling. But today, something came up I can't ignore. While digging through a drawer looking for our home insurance policy, I came across a folder with monthly statements from Claire's Fidelity account, the one tied to the inheritance she received when her parents passed away in that awful accident a few years back. I've always respected her privacy with that account and never snooped. I remembered the inheritance being around $350,000 at the time. Out of pure curiosity, I glanced at the latest statement. It had grown to over $400,000, which was impressive, honestly. Then something jumped out at me. A withdrawal for $3,000, taken from the money market account about 6 weeks ago. Right around the time her purse was supposedly stolen. That got me wondering, what exactly did she spend that money on? So I went back through that same money market account and found something that stopped me cold, a check made out to a local jewelry store. Just a couple of days after she reported her purse stolen, in the same city she was visiting. She hadn't said a word about buying any jewelry. Not for me, not for anyone else. She has a brother, but I couldn't imagine why he'd need a $3,000 gift. The whole thing didn't make sense. Still stewing, I decided to check the store's website. I wrote down the number and gave them a call. A woman picked up, greeting me cheerfully. I explained who I was and mentioned I had questions about a purchase that had recently been made at their store. Said there might be an issue, and I was hoping to see if there was a warranty. She asked for a moment to look up the transaction. Then she asked, "What seems to be the issue with the rings?" I was thrown for a moment, trying to wrap my head around what kind of rings she could have possibly bought. Thankfully, the woman on the phone clarified quickly. "Oh yes, I remember that transaction," she said. "When your wife came into our store, she was clearly upset. She told us her wedding and engagement rings had been stolen, and she was looking to replace them. It was a bit tricky finding something that matched her original set, but we helped her out. She left her company credit card with us as a deposit, then mailed in a check to cover the cost. She went on to explain, "Since you mentioned there's an issue with the rings, I want to assure you, we offer a 90-day warranty. Was there a problem with the diamond setting coming loose?" Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. Claire never told me her rings had been lost. She'd only mentioned her purse being stolen. And now I was hearing from a stranger that she'd gone out of her way to quietly replace her wedding set? I tried to keep it together on the call. "I appreciate the info," I said, forcing calm into my voice. "But I'll need to talk this over with my wife before doing anything else. I'll be in touch." We said goodbye, and while the woman might have been a little confused by the sudden end of our conversation, I was drowning in my own confusion. If her purse had been stolen, and the rings were inside, why had she been carrying them in the first place? She never takes them off. And even if she did, why keep them in her purse while traveling? The only explanation that kept echoing in my head was one I didn't want to admit: maybe she wanted to appear single. As far as I knew, there weren't any work-related reasons to hide her marital status. But maybe there were other situations, social ones, where being seen as available felt more convenient to her. My thoughts started spiraling into dark places. Was she considering cheating while away from home? Just the idea made me nauseous. We'd been married for 11 years. We had 2 beautiful kids, Jeremy, age 8, and Melissa, 6. As far as I was concerned, we had a strong, happy marriage. A good life. I truly thought everything between us was solid. Claire usually traveled once a month, staying 2 or 3 nights in different cities. If she had any hidden intentions, those trips could have been the perfect cover. Maybe losing the rings had genuinely upset her. Maybe she replaced them not out of guilt, but out of regret. I had bought her original set with what little money I had back when we were just starting out. They weren't flashy, but they meant something. She had apparently picked out replacements that looked nearly identical, nothing too extravagant. She could have filed an insurance claim, but if she had, I would have seen it. That led me to another question: had she actually reported the theft to the hotel? Determined to find out, I searched online for the hotel's number and gave them a call. I asked if they had any kind of incident report on file related to a stolen purse that week. To my surprise, they did. They had a written report signed by Claire herself. I asked them to fax it over, and when it came through, my heart sank. According to the report, the theft happened while she was dancing in the hotel's ballroom. She'd left her purse at the booth where she was sitting, and when she returned, it was gone. She also specifically stated in the report that she didn't want to involve the police. That detail knocked the wind out of me. She had lied to me, not just about losing the rings, but about how it all went down. She'd never mentioned anything about dancing, let alone being in a setting where she'd leave her purse unattended. Could there be another explanation? Maybe. But my mind wasn't offering me any. One thing was becoming painfully clear: her wedding rings were in that purse, while she was out dancing, with someone I didn't know. It had been several weeks since that night, and now she was preparing for another trip. If I wanted answers, real answers, I needed to find out more. I had to understand how she spent her evenings when she was away. Because if there was someone else in the picture, then this might all end very soon. As much as I hated the thought, if Claire was cheating, I couldn't see a way to stay married. And as much as I didn't want our kids to be caught in the middle of this, especially since Claire's always been an incredible mom, I knew I couldn't live with lies. I couldn't stand the thought of Claire getting custody of the kids, especially with how often she traveled for work. The idea of her bringing that kind of chaos into their lives tore me up inside. My mind was racing, grasping at anything that might give me some clue, some proof, about whether she'd really been unfaithful. I started asking myself questions I never thought I'd have to consider. If she was seeing other men, did she take any precautions? Was she using protection? I figured she'd have to. She wouldn't risk coming home with an STI or getting pregnant. That couldn't happen anyway. I'd had a vasectomy after Melissa was born. So if she was worried about pregnancy, it wouldn't be because of me. She couldn't count on random guys to be prepared, so she must have carried protection herself. Which made me wonder, where would she even keep it? Not at our house, surely. Not in the car. Her office seemed the most likely hiding spot. Or maybe she packed it with her when she traveled. Claire usually carried her work materials, laptop, documents, presentation stuff, in a big leather briefcase she stored at the office. But if her flight was early in the morning, she'd bring it home the night before so she could pack it in her luggage. That detail mattered. I realized that if I was ever going to look inside that briefcase, it would have to be the night before a morning departure. I made a conscious effort to stay calm. I didn't want her to suspect anything. I played it cool, even when the kids got home from school and the evening routine kicked into full gear. I didn't have much time to dwell on my doubts, but they lingered in the back of my mind like a storm cloud that wouldn't move on. That night, things got messy, literally. While I was fixing dinner, I accidentally knocked over a dish of baked beans. They went everywhere. Between cleaning that up and helping the kids with their homework, I was flustered and worn out by the time Claire walked through the door. Still, she didn't seem to notice anything was off. I gave her a kiss on the cheek like I always did, and we sat down together for dinner with the kids. Our conversation was casual, routine. I didn't get the sense she was hiding anything, but maybe she was just that good at it. As we ate, I eased into the topic that had been burning in the back of my mind. So, another trip in a couple days, huh? I asked, trying to sound casual. Yeah, she said, not exactly thrilled. Same old thing. I'm not really looking forward to it. If it's such a drag, have you thought about changing roles? I nudged gently. You've been with the company a while now, you've got experience with a lot of different departments. You could easily handle something less travel-heavy. She gave a little shrug. I've thought about it. I just want to build up a little more experience before settling into a desk job. I nodded, then shifted gears. I just really miss you when you're gone, I said, lowering my voice slightly. The kids do too. I know. I miss you guys too, she replied with a softer tone. Trying to get more details, I asked. Where are you headed this time? Are you leaving in the morning? Maybe we could have a little time together before you go. I kept my tone even, careful not to sound too eager or suspicious. But inside, my stomach was a knot. I could barely eat. I don't know if she noticed, but she wasn't eating much either. Maybe she had nerves too, or maybe she was just tired. It's just Denton this time, she said, almost breezily. I leave at 7:30 tomorrow morning. Then she gave me a little wink. I'll need something to hold me over until I get back Friday, she teased. I smiled and played along, giving her a playful look right back. To my surprise, she actually blushed. That briefcase, she'd be bringing it home tonight. She always did when she had an early flight. She wouldn't have time to stop by the office in the morning. The way she acted in front of me and the kids that night, joking, affectionate, would have convinced anyone that nothing was going on. Maybe there wasn't anything. Maybe I was losing my mind. Or maybe she was just really good at hiding it. I had to find out. The evening before Claire's scheduled trip, I finally got my chance to examine the contents of her briefcase. She came home in high spirits, pulling her car into the garage and parking beside mine like always. Her mood was noticeably upbeat, more than usual, and I couldn't help but wonder if it was because of something I'd said earlier, or if something else was behind that glow. When she came inside, she didn't bring the briefcase with her, which led me to assume it was still in the car. I was busy in the kitchen prepping dinner, so we sat down at the table not long after she arrived. During dinner, she asked casually, "Hey, would you mind grabbing my suitcase from the garage once we're done?" "Of course," I said, making sure to sound relaxed and not the least bit suspicious. "You all set for your trip?" I asked, keeping the tone light. "Oh yeah," she said, trying to sound nonchalant. "Just the usual. My briefcase is in the car, ready to go. I'll pack a small overnight bag later tonight." Trying to keep the conversation flowing, I added. Any special plans while you're gone? Nope. Business as usual. You and the kids just stick to the regular routine, and maybe when I get back we can plan something fun for the weekend. Sounds like a plan, I replied, meaning it. After dinner, Claire helped clear the table and loaded the dishwasher. Then she headed off to the bedroom to start packing. That was my cue. I made my way to the garage and checked her car. Sure enough, the briefcase wasn't in the back seat, it was locked in the trunk. I'd figured she'd do that, and I already had a plan in place to get to it. When I returned to the bedroom with her suitcase, I kept it casual. Hey, do you know where the car keys are? I think one of the tires is losing air. If I take it to Jerry's, he can patch it up real quick. She looked a little confused at first, but then reached into her purse and handed me the keys. Couldn't you just use the spare? She asked. That's for emergencies, I said firmly. We've got time to do it right. I didn't wait for any more questions. I headed back to the garage, started her car, and drove straight to the junction station. My buddy Jerry, who I've known since high school, owns the place. I pulled up to one of the service bays and gave a quick honk. Jerry came out, opened the bay door, and waved me in. What's up, man? He asked as I rolled inside. I said I was coming for a tire check, I told him. But honestly, I needed a few minutes to look at something else. He picked up on the tension right away. Trouble at home? He asked gently. I gave a slow nod. Yeah. Maybe. I popped the trunk, pulled out Claire's briefcase, and set it down on a workbench. Jerry took the hint, gave me a pat on the back, and said, I'll be in the shop if you need anything. I took a deep breath and opened the briefcase. I searched carefully, making sure not to disturb anything or leave signs I'd been there. My hands moved through the pockets and compartments, and that's when I found it. A small, half-used package of contraceptives. 3 missing. I just stood there, frozen, staring at it. There it was, the confirmation I'd been dreading. My heart sank. I put the package back exactly where I'd found it, closed the briefcase, and locked it up again. Then I placed it back in the trunk, trying to act like none of this was real. Jerry returned just as I finished. You find what you needed? He asked. I looked him in the eyes, barely able to speak. Yeah, I said quietly. I did. He could see the pain on my face. Mind if I hang out a little longer? Maybe check the tire pressure while I pretend to fix the issue? Jerry just nodded, no questions asked. He was that kind of friend. While he worked, I drove out of the bay and over to a nearby gas station. I filled her tank like I always did before a trip, even though I didn't know if I'd ever do it again. I was grateful for Jerry's quiet support. But as I pulled into the garage at home, the gravity of everything finally hit me. Darkness crept into my thoughts, panic bubbled up, and anger started to take over. How could she do this? To me. To our kids. To everything we built together. Even as I struggled to process it all, I knew one thing: I needed a plan. A real one. I had to protect my children. Because no matter how good Claire might have been as a mother, as a wife, she had failed us. I've never denied that Claire is a good mother. No matter what else was going on, the kids deserved to have her in their lives. But that didn't change my goal: full legal custody. I knew she'd probably still get visitation, but I couldn't risk our kids being bounced around during her frequent business trips. She'd have to explain all this to her brother, to our friends, why our marriage had ended. That burden would fall squarely on her shoulders. When I got back into the house, I called out from the bedroom, keeping my voice casual. All set, it was just a nail in the tire. Okay, thanks, she called back. Still no eye contact. Looking for a moment of peace, I grabbed a beer from the fridge and went to join the kids in the family room. They were locked in on some TV show, blissfully unaware. I sat down beside them, letting the screen distract me while my mind churned. About 30 minutes later, Claire joined us. She settled next to me on the couch, inching close until she leaned into me. Her head rested against my shoulder. Then, in a whisper, she asked, "You ready for tonight?" I took a slow sip of my beer. "I think so," I said quietly, "but my stomach's acting up." "Oh, that's too bad, honey," she said softly, reaching over and holding on to me. "I love you," she added. I instinctively wrapped an arm around her shoulder, emotions clashing inside me, hurt and affection twisting together. Even after what I'd found, some part of me still wanted to hold her close. I couldn't help but ask myself why she'd done it. Was it for excitement? Some kind of connection I wasn't giving her? I didn't know. Maybe I never would. But one thing was clear, my trust was broken. Later, we tucked the kids into bed together. She kissed our little ones goodnight like everything was normal. They were used to her traveling so much, so they didn't question anything. As I watched her standing there, knowing she'd be gone come morning, I felt something shift. That warm, safe version of our family, it was slipping away. That night, we made love. But it wasn't like before. There was something missing. Some spark that had quietly burned out. Sensing my distance, Claire asked, "Is your stomach still bothering you?" I nodded. "Yeah. But I'll manage." There was a part of me, desperate and tired, that still hoped she'd stay. That maybe, just maybe, she'd change her mind. "Do you really have to go on this trip?" I asked. She sighed. "I'm sorry, babe. I have to. But I'll try to wrap things up early and be home Friday. I'm really looking forward to the weekend with you and the kids." I nodded, resigned. "Okay. Time to get some sleep. You've got an early flight. I'm gonna take a quick shower now, so I don't have to deal with it in the morning." While she stepped into the bathroom, an impulse took hold of me. I opened her suitcase. At first glance, everything looked professional: folded blouses, work slacks, a laptop charger. But as I dug a little deeper, I found something that made my heart sink. Hidden beneath the layers were her most seductive lingerie and that black cocktail dress, the one she knew I couldn't resist. I froze. Then, careful not to disturb anything, I put everything back exactly as I'd found it. I closed the suitcase, zipped it shut, and returned to bed. Sleep never came. Around 5 in the morning, I heard her stirring. I stayed in bed, silent. Normally, I'd get up to help with her bags, see her off with a kiss and a hug. But not today. Not after everything. She leaned over, kissed me lightly on the cheek. "Still feeling sick, honey?" I gave a small nod. I couldn't trust myself to speak. The sound of the garage door opening and closing told me she was gone. I finally got out of bed, took a long shower, and tried to collect my thoughts. The day ahead would be anything but normal. Once the kids were off to school, I ate a quick breakfast and flipped through the yellow pages, searching for a private investigator. I needed someone with reach, preferably a firm with a branch in Denton, where Claire had flown. After a few calls, I found one that fit the bill. I set up a meeting that same morning, hoping they could help uncover the truth. My next call was to a divorce lawyer a friend had recommended. I found his number, dialed it, and made an appointment for that afternoon. I needed legal guidance, for myself, and for the sake of my children. At the private investigator's office, I laid out everything: my concerns, her travel details, and the mounting evidence. I gave them a recent photo of Claire and mapped out her route and schedule. They assured me they'd assign someone to follow her that very night. Photos, surveillance logs, the works. Once her workday ended, they'd start tracking. Updates would be sent to their Denton office and forwarded to me via email. A full report would be ready by Monday. I walked out of that meeting knowing it had begun. I was finally doing something. Finally getting answers. I handed over a sizable upfront payment to the private investigator, covering their retainer for the job. They told me they couldn't guarantee photographs but would do their best to gather as much visual evidence as possible. I told them that was fine, anything incriminating would help. That afternoon, I met with the lawyer as scheduled. The conversation went pretty much how I expected. He explained that our state follows a no-fault divorce policy, meaning there's no need to prove wrongdoing. Still, since I was the primary caregiver for our kids, I'd most likely be awarded custody. That was what mattered most to me. He also made it clear that Claire would have significant visitation rights, which I could live with. As for our property, everything would be split evenly, 50-50, straight down the line. No alimony would be owed since our incomes were pretty equal, but because I'd have the kids full-time, Claire would actually be the one paying child support. Her inheritance? I told him I didn't want any part of it. It came from her parents, and as far as I was concerned, she could keep it. My only focus was protecting my children. I instructed the lawyer to get the paperwork ready and have it delivered to Claire on Monday. We would cite irreconcilable differences. I also requested that she vacate the house immediately after the divorce was finalized. The lawyer confirmed I had every right to make that demand as the custodial parent. We agreed that once the kids turned 18, we'd sell the house and split the proceeds. As I left the law office, a strange sense of peace came over me. Life would go on, for me and the kids. Claire would have to face the fallout from her betrayal. At that point, I didn't rush to make any financial or insurance changes. I figured I'd have time to deal with those once the divorce was officially in motion. With her inheritance, Claire wouldn't be hurting for money anyway, and I wasn't worried about her portion of our joint savings. That Friday afternoon, I made it home in time to meet the kids off the bus. When Claire walked through the door later, I offered to take care of her laundry like I sometimes did, but she declined politely. "I'll get to it later," she said, smiling. I had to chuckle to myself. I knew why she wanted to do it herself. She couldn't risk me finding anything she was hiding in her clothes. That night in bed, she brought up my stomach issues, again, clearly concerned. "You should really see a doctor," she said. "This has been going on too long." Trying to keep things light, I joked back. "A friend recommended some new meds. Might finally get me back to normal, and back to you." She smiled and leaned in close, whispering, "I really miss you." Then Monday rolled around. After the kids left for school and Claire was off to work, my phone rang. It was the detective agency. "We've got the report ready," the woman said. "You can come by any time today to pick it up." I was out the door within minutes. Half an hour later, I was sitting across from the office manager as he handed me a manila folder. "This came in from Denton this morning," he said. "I haven't had time to read through it, but I took a quick glance, and it looks bad." I opened the folder and scanned the first few pages. The subject was listed as Claire Barton. According to the report, surveillance began at 5:17 p.m. on Wednesday, June 16th. She was seen entering the Denton Marriott Hotel. Her identity was verified by matching a photo from the agency's Merville office, along with a visible company badge she wore upon check-in. She was also carrying her usual briefcase. At 5:23 p.m., she took the elevator up to room 414. A hotel staff member confirmed she checked into that room. The report noted she was alone when she entered. Attached was a photo labeled Exhibit 1A, Claire dressed professionally, just outside her room. Her wedding rings were still on her fingers. The photo had clearly been taken discreetly, likely with a cell phone. According to the file, the surveillance team had rented a room directly across from hers. At 6:31 p.m., they received a signal that Claire had left her room and was heading for the elevator. By 6:32, she was seen walking through the hotel lobby. Exhibit 1B captured that moment. She was wearing the black cocktail dress, the one I'd found in her suitcase. It clung to her perfectly. She had on high heels and that delicate necklace I'd given her 2 anniversaries ago. And she looked stunning. But the pit in my stomach reminded me, I wasn't the one she dressed up for. That necklace she wore that night, the one in the photo, I'd given it to her for our 10th anniversary. It was supposed to be a symbol of everything we'd built together. But in that moment, looking at the photo, all I could see was what was missing. Her wedding rings. She wasn't wearing them. Not on her left hand. Not anywhere. The report repeated the timeline again. She exited the elevator at 6:32 p.m. and walked into the lobby. The surveillance team took another photo, Exhibit 1B, which captured her outfit, the little black cocktail dress, high heels, and that necklace. But the absence of her rings was unmistakable. Then I got to Exhibit 1D. Claire was in a booth, locked in a tight embrace with a man I didn't recognize. They were kissing. No, not just kissing. It was passionate, full-body contact. The kind of kiss that said this wasn't a first. The timestamp read 8:51 p.m. According to the report, they left the restaurant shortly after that, took the elevator back up to her floor, and entered room 414 together. Another photo, Exhibit 1E, showed them at her door. Claire looked tipsy. Maybe even drunk. But she was smiling. She looked completely satisfied. At 11:13 p.m., the man left her room and exited the building. The report included his license plate number. His name was Alexander B. Tate. He lived at 1424 Elia Drive, Denton. He was married. With 2 kids. That was the punch in the gut I didn't see coming. And it didn't end there. The next night? Same pattern. Different man. The report was signed by the lead investigator in Denton. There was no question about its validity. No room for doubt. Claire wasn't just cheating, she was living a second life. A reckless, promiscuous one. Like the vows we made meant nothing. I left the agency with the report in hand, 2 backup copies on a CD, and a heaviness in my chest I couldn't shake. As soon as I got home, I called my divorce lawyer. "Are the papers ready?" I asked. "Yes," he confirmed. "They're finalized. Ready for filing." "Good. I want them served tomorrow," I said. "At her workplace." There was a brief pause on his end. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure," I replied. "She deserves to be exposed, for everything." I gave him Claire's office address without hesitation. It wasn't just revenge, it was justice. Let her try to explain that to her boss, her coworkers, her friends. That night, whatever thread of connection we still had, it snapped. She acted like everything was normal, but I think she could sense something had shifted. Maybe she saw it in my eyes, or heard it in the silence. She didn't say anything directly, but there was a hesitation in the way she looked at me. A quiet worry. She wished me a quick recovery, clearly trying to keep things calm. But I didn't respond with much. I just let it hang in the air. The next morning, I barely slept. I got up early, sat at the computer for a while trying to distract myself. When I heard the kids stirring, I went into the kitchen and made breakfast. Claire came down, dressed for work, same routine as always. She gave me a hug, went in for a kiss. I gave her a half-hearted embrace, light, almost playful, and told her to get going so she wouldn't be late. She looked at me for a second longer than usual. Maybe she knew. Maybe she felt what was coming. I closed the door behind her. She stood there for a second, eyes brimming with tears. "I love you," she whispered. Then she was gone. As the silence settled in, a wave of sadness crashed over me. I wanted to cry, really let it out, but I didn't. The kids needed me, and there was a school bus to catch. Around 10:45 a.m., the phone rang, cutting through the morning routine. The caller ID showed her work. I picked up but didn't say anything. There was a pause, just long enough to feel her hesitation. Then, in a trembling whisper, Claire said, "I'm sorry." Click. She didn't come home that night. I didn't know if she was still playing whatever game she'd been playing for months or if she'd finally run out of moves. Either way, she was gone, and I wasn't sure she cared. Despite everything, part of me wondered if I'd been too cold. Maybe too ruthless. But the anger, the anger was still justified. The kids, confused and missing their mom, asked where she was. I didn't have answers, but I knew they needed something normal, something comforting. So I took them out to dinner. A trip to McDonald's. Simple, familiar. When we got home, they went straight to bed, worn out but smiling. The next morning, Claire called again. "Honey, can I come home and pack my things? Can we talk?" For a second, guilt welled up inside me. Then it vanished. You can come between 9 o'clock and noon, I said, keeping my voice steady. The kids and I won't be here. As for talking, I continued, that'll only happen in my lawyer's office, after you've signed, notarized, and returned the divorce papers. Then I'll listen. There was a quiet sob on the other end. Then silence. She signed the papers. 6 months later, it was official. Our marriage was over. It turned out Claire had gotten pregnant during the affair. She tried to hide it from the guy she'd been seeing. Apparently, the contraception didn't work. She was approaching the edge of childbearing age, and even if I hadn't discovered her infidelity through the missing rings, the truth would have come out eventually. There were rumors she'd started dating again. And yeah, I've thought about warning whoever's next in line. It feels wrong to let another man walk into that without at least knowing. During one of our last conversations, at my lawyer's office, Claire begged me to reconsider. She said not having open access to the kids was tearing her apart. But I told her the truth, I couldn't trust her. Not anymore. That's when she brought up seeing a psychologist. Said she'd been diagnosed with nymphomania? Claimed her impulses were under control now. I listened. I really did. But it wasn't enough. If she'd taken steps earlier, if she'd been honest, gotten help before things spiraled, maybe we wouldn't be sitting across from each other at a conference table, trading apologies and legal documents. But that's not how it played out. As I walked out of the lawyer's office, she was still crying. Later on, an old school friend of mine, someone who works at a nightclub, called to check in. Turns out Claire had become a regular there. He'd seen her several times, with different men each night, acting provocatively. It hit me like a sucker punch. My kids have to grow up knowing that version of their mother. Then, a mutual friend called to say Claire was in poor health. She had contracted herpes. Despite everything, I felt a flicker of sympathy. But I didn't offer help. I couldn't. Claire had made her choices. And now, she was living with the consequences. Meanwhile, I've started dating again. And somehow, I think I've found someone special. She's around my age, divorced too. Her marriage ended when she discovered her ex-husband had been cheating, and like me, she didn't put up with it. She's strong. Grounded. There's a quiet resilience in her that I deeply admire. The kids like her, which means more than anything. It feels like a natural progression, like life is trying to course correct. It's only a matter of time before I take that next step. And this time, I'm not walking into it blindly.